How are you?
Good, thank you very much.
Very well, thank you.
It's very good to hear. So, where I want to start with, what I want to start with is, I'm guessing you've been friends for quite a while, but do you remember your first impressions of each other?
Yeah.
This is quite a unique story. I guess I'm the sort of latest comer to the band. I've only been in it about a year and a couple of months. So the band was already quite
you
formed.
said it from your perspective, I'm intrigued.
I joined like a year and a few months ago, back in 2018. 2018. And I was asked by someone they knew, they were looking for a drummer. I thought I wasn't in a band at the time. I just left a band before, and I was up for jamming. I was up for doing something. I had no idea what it was, and just came along and found the guys. And I just found that they would sort of didn't take much seriously, like in terms of like that everything was like a good old joke. Everything was joking around, but the music was taken seriously, and that was quite
comedy band.
Something that was quite important.
Yeah, but I remember when Ben came out of the train station. We were all in I think Harry's car or something. And then he came, a massive blow. Because I was the tallest in the band, but I think Ben's knocked me off that, off that pedestal. But by all means,
the competition still runs.
Ben, what did you think of the music they were making?
I thought it was great. Like I think sort of playing it was very different to the sort of demos they had.
Okay.
And I hadn't really heard much like it at the time, and there wasn't much to compare it to at the time, and I thought it was going to be great. But I had no idea what it was going to be like going into it. I was quite blind, and took a whim on it, and it ended up being quite a good experience.
We'd never played with like another drummer before, so it was refreshing for us. It was like a new experience completely, so new sound, and it felt like its own thing. But yeah, it's all worked out, isn't it?
I thought the sound had elements of, it had elements of some nostalgic elements of older music with sort of a quite unique feet twist on it, or whatever you want to call it.
And George, for you then, what was the appeal of having another member come in?
So, I mean, in order for Ben to come through, we had to let someone go, you see, as is, life. And I just think that having Ben in, it was just the level of how much more that we could do. Like an idea could be fleshed out quite quickly, and grooves and all kinds of things are just a lot easier to kind of get into if we just had an idea. Then we could thrash it out rather than talk about it and explain it and then teach our old drummer it and kind of walking through it. There was a bit more, it was a bit more freeing, so to speak. But he was, our old drummer was a friend of ours and stuff. We'd known him for a while, and it was more of like we were mates. We've been through a few things because all the touring and stuff, and we played loads of shows. But there was a point where the music side of it, I think we were trying to move on to like greener pastures, if you like, and develop the sound. And the influx of Ben coming in has blossomed, opened that up to new opportunities. So. And
then with that in mind then, because you're kind of self-described as this, or I don't know if it's self-described, by the way, but as a boozy kind of fun-loving band. So when did it go from that to a bit more serious approach, and like you say, trying to move on to greener pastures?
I guess once you kind of like understand each other a bit more, rather than it's just becoming friends and stuff, and we all like similar music and we've got similar references and things, but once you get past the point of feeling comfortable with each other, you kind of want to then latch on to it being something you can invest some time into and develop and have some, artistic merit to it. And that stuff takes, work and time, but you need a bit of, it needs to go somewhere, it needs to be moving forward. So I think the progression is a natural thing once you've got that in your head, so that you want to be the better version of yourselves, you see.
So can I assume then that there's quite a bit of ambition in the band?
Yeah, definitely, for sure. It's hard to, I guess in the current music climate, it's hard to know how to get, well, at what level do you become a certain, because I guess live shows now is like the currency, selling out bigger venues and all this kind of stuff, but there are ways to do that going through industry routes and things, not necessarily like grafting and working over the music. There's some people that don't play big shows and spend all their time in the studio. There's different ways to accomplish that goal, you see, but I think we want a little bit of both, and it's just the luxury of time.
Fair enough.
At the moment.
Well, there's one thing, I think you said this in an interview, but I'm not sure, but as far as there's a philosophy to this band maybe, I just think about what's the obvious thing to do and then just tweak it completely. So is that kind of fair?
The big statement.
No, but is that kind of a fair assessment of how you approach the songwriting process as a band?
That's jokes. Maybe. I think there's definitely an understanding of things that we don't like, or maybe a sound that you can kind of pigeonhole. I mean, a lot of that stuff is, representative of influences that you can kind of hear quite clearly through it. I mean, we have a lot of influences,
right.
Spanning from all kinds of genres. By no means are we the kind of champions of this new sound, we're just ripping off people that maybe not everyone's heard, you see.
No, but one thing that did strike me about the record is that it's a little bit off-center in a way. It's not kind of that straightforward, like indie or whatever garage. There's, like you say, a mix of all kinds of things, and you're not afraid to kind of show that in the songs as well.
Yeah.
So what is a typical kind of creative process like for a song? If there is one, because I assume it's different for most. But.
Yeah, I mean, but like having Ben in the group as well, like the way I kind of see it with the new album is because the sound changed when Ben came in, and he wasn't really around for much time before we started recording the album, so everything that we've done on the album has been a response to Ben's input. Okay. So it's kind of like a reaction to a little bit of talent, you see.
Was that a daunting task for you then, to come into a band that already kind of had that?
Yeah,
base?
Definitely. I mean, I hadn't really heard the band before. I was a little out of touch at the time, to be honest. But
how come?
Well, I don't know. It's just I wanted a bit of a break from the sort of music at the time, because I'd just come from a previous band that ended quite badly. But no, coming into this. Like nothing was taken, there was no massive pressure on anything. It was more just like anything goes, anything is cool. Everyone was like happy with everyone's input. It was a really good environment to come straight into. It didn't feel too daunting because there was no massive stress put on it. Even if we were under stress to get songs done, we had like a couple of days before we were going to record a second set of songs. We had like 2 days to get this song done, but it still didn't feel completely straight. It didn't feel even that stressful, because it was quite a natural sort of vibe, and it came out quite easily.
It's not too kind of like egocentric. It's not like one idea is kind of the idea. You see, it's not like waiting around for someone to come up with something, or it's kind of two held against each other. It's like, that's my part, that's your part, kind of thing. It's not a contest by any means. It's more of like a kind of a fluid approach to it. I mean, some of the songs we wrote on jams, and then just kind of talking amongst ourselves, just like, that'd be cool if we did that. Sometimes it was just some parts were suggested things. Sometimes it was, I think on Axeman, like one of the guitar lines was like a backing vocal, and then it's like, that sounds like a Bugsy Malone film or something if you sing it in the backing vocal. But maybe we could turn it into a guitar line, and I don't know, there's as long as it's got like an open mind and there's not too much kind of held against your own input, then you can kind of free it up, because something I come up with doesn't necessarily have to be something that I then play or then do, or even, have in the song at all. So
it's more in the service of the song.
Yeah,
so
I think it's like the part that you're presenting is disposable. There's a disposable element to it, so it can come as it goes, and it can always come back again.
No, but that's I think a very, very healthy approach to take.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know how this works in the timeline, but you went to Portsmouth, and I wrote down a line from Chalet 47, the home of Crease, set up shop by the sea.
Yeah.
And were you around for this band?
This is when I came in, so I met them at this
He
point.
walked into a bit of a madhouse.
Well, when you went there, what did you? How would you describe kind of the place?
So I mean, I don't know if there's anything like this in this country, but it's almost like a retirement home, sort of / holiday home, which mainly old people go to, and it's quite outdated. So it was something that was sort of very popular in the 70s, but people are sort of really trying to hold on to that.
Really old, like prefab kind of, I don't know, houses and things, but they're all like kind of bungalow flats.
Like really disgusting flowered curtains, like horrible interior, and just like came into that, and it was just like, I don't know.
It's quite like a really long dark road as well, because it's right by it, but it's a real country road. And I think we went straight to the practice studio space.
Yeah.
It wasn't a studio, I'll tell you that. And then from there we went into town. I think we had like a pint and spoke to Ben and stuff, and then we drove him back to our like caravan by the sea, in Portsmouth. But I think he stayed the night. Is that?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
But I mean, it functioned well, but it, like visually, it looked like like quite disturbing. It was quite an uncomfortable, weird place.
No, but I can imagine, and this is more about kind of probably than before you came along, Ben. But how important are those type of sessions where it's just the 4 of you or the 5 of you? How many there are? To kind of cultivate that friendship and knowing kind of you'll be on the road with each other for a while, so you need to kind of find that common ground.
Yeah, I think the kind of shared experience thing definitely owed something. I mean, pretty much all the songs on the album are written from memorable moments and stuff that we've shared as a 5. It's not necessarily being like, particularly as being a lyricist, it's not like my one mission, I'm just come back in with some words, I'm like, all right guys, this is it. It's very much like a shared experience, and a little quips and little bits and bobs that kind of form, I guess, the mentality of the group. And then what you're saying about the whole kind of crease by the sea, that all feeds into the kind of mentality where we're all just kind of friends at the end of the day, but the band is like the context to that friendship. But you can do stuff outside of the context of the band, you see, so you can just have a good time. Which, I mean, playing shows is by all means a good time.
Fair enough. But one thing I suppose that comes through the lyrics and the songs is a sense of humor in this quite serious time. Why is this important to protect in a way?
Particularly with like the eclectic kind of sound as well, I think with the veneer of humour, you can kind of get away with a little bit more, I think. So in that case, we can kind of push the boat out. Coincidence that we live by the sea, but I think it's nice to kind of, maybe you can state your original point, but I think humour means you can kind of derail a little bit, but stay within the confines of the song, because it's still like, they're just taking the piss for a little while, you see, and then you come back. But
fair enough. Is this something you incorporate into the live show as well?
Yeah. I mean, like particularly I think the live show, and like I was saying, that live is definitely like the currency of bands nowadays. Right. Like entertainment, I think, is such a massive aspect. We're not exactly like damaged artists. It's not. I don't feel like we're giving up an element of ourselves every time we go on stage. And fair play to people that do that. But there's definitely a kind of push towards entertainment and the theatrics, and I like dancing. Some of the songs and stuff, and what we're trying to go for is groove-based things as well. And I guess that live element, you can kind of get into it, and I want to see people moving and having a good time, but it's the atmosphere. It's all about the kind of pursuit of the best night of your life, you see.
And am I right in saying then that Ad Blue was kind of a song to get people to move?
Yeah. I mean, like so Ad Blue is literally about us living on a farm, and our bass player Ollie filled up a kettle with some diesel, and that was just like a stupid story, but the song itself was just like a jam kind of thing with a bass line, and then develop that into like all right, okay, maybe this could be something. But I think the whole dance element of songs, sometimes they focus too much on the dance. It's like all dance songs have to be about dancing. It's like not necessarily, you see. So you know, you talk about Diesel and still get people moving. So.
Yeah, fair enough. And for you, Ben, and how do you approach a song like that to get that rhythm the way it is?
Well, do you mean specifically with Ad Blue? Or?
Specifically, well, you can talk more in general, but if you want specifically about that.
Well, when I came in, that was one of the songs that was the more complete sort of version, and I guess I just put more of a like just even more sort of the classic, more dancey rhythms on it. That sort of classic was already sort of on the demo, but just adding a few of the extra sort of glimpses to like
the
dance. But I don't know. It all came out very, very easily.
Was it more of a, because I can imagine you come in and there's just, everything's happening quite quickly, so is it maybe only now that you kind of get to reflect on it a little bit, or are you still then for you as well, kind of in the middle of that album? And
well, like six months down the line was when I sort of started talking, when we sort of started talking about and reflecting about that time when we just joined and how we all thought of each other and how we thought it was going. And I think. So wait, what was the question?
I don't remember. Never mind. I'll what was I asking? I don't remember.
What was it? So like, how much have we moved on? Oh, what do we think retrospectively?
Oh yeah, they're kind of having that separation between making the album and kind of now.
Oh, right.
Figuring out what it's about, or kind of, you know?
Okay, right. I think it definitely clicked sort of after that 6 months of just like, I understand what Feet is about, I understand what everything is, sort of the vibe and the ethos of Feet. And I think now with the second album, it's going to be maybe even a smoother writing process. Now we're all living together, it's good. Like the songs and influences may be different, but I feel like the point of view of the lyrics and how we write songs will I think the lyrics and the point of view will be the same, but how we write songs might be quite different to the first one.
Yeah.
And our influences may be quite different as well, so it may be a natural progression away from what the first one was.
And because like you said, it's like 6 months ago, and like the whole writing process, once you're recording and stuff, like we finished that stuff in like January.
Right.
Sometime and then I guess now kind of plugging it to an extent and talking about it, so you're talking about a distant memory. And like a lot of those, and like Ben was saying, like the influences have changed, or maybe they're just an extension of the old influences, but they're a bit kind of more varied, so we've got more of a palette to choose from for the next album. But I think the direction's definitely kind of, it's in the same vein, but it's just moving at a different speed, you know.
Fair enough. George, what is one influence that you have that Ben hates?
One influence that Ben hates?
If there is one.
I'm trying to.
And it can be vice versa as well. So if you have something that you.
Yeah, would you hate my stuff, Ben? Oh, I was saying to Cat Rains the other day. What's his name? Who's that jazz guitarist that you play? Wes Montgomery.
Yeah.
Waking up to that, like. Because we've got a record player that's now broken. We've been buying loads of records recently. Can't play them. Stupid. But yeah, waking up to that and just one guitar solo after another. 7 minutes long as well. Every time.
He's just, he's not ready for it yet.
Yeah.
Just,
Clearly I'm not educated enough, to have that professional understanding to kind of get into it. But
with that in mind, then, and if a vice versa one comes up, just mention it. But with that in mind, then, is there kind of what makes a good Feet song in a way? Is there kind of I don't want to call it a mold because it doesn't work like that. But is there kind of something you're looking for that makes a song good?
Yeah, I get what you mean. I'm trying to put it into, trying to articulate it.
From an outsider, from an original outsider's perspective, there's no particular style or direct style influence, but I think it's more of like there are certain sounds, like with Harry's guitar, there's always that element of it, but there's there's no structural format. There's no necessarily like melody format, and I mean a lot of the songs sort of vary from like very simple. Like Ad Blue is literally 2 chords, whereas you've got like What's Inside More Than Just Ham, which has got 4 different sections in an ABD, ABC structure, which just like doesn't really make sense. I don't think there's any particular format. It's just sort of a representation of what we're listening to and what's going on at that time.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Well, it's like I was saying, where I think particularly as a band we have quite an understanding of things we don't want to sound like.
Sure.
So maybe it's when something in its complete entirety, when it's, if we get to a section in a song or a verse or a chorus or whatever, and it's like, okay, if we wanted to, we could go this way. But that's almost the expected route, not that we're trying to always just derail it every time.
Right.
Because that would just be horrible to listen to, you know. Let's just do it, you know. But I think there's definitely like a wayward route there. And then sometimes you kind of realise it, sometimes it just goes way off, you know, and you can't get back.
And with what we mentioned earlier, kind of the ambition and the way the music industry works in a sense, how do you, and what you just now mentioned, kind of that approach, is it difficult to navigate this music industry? And then I know it's been just a couple of years, so there's loads more to figure out.
Yeah.
But in terms of that ambition, do you wonder about that? What type of music you make? And
well, I mean, particularly as like a guitar band, it's not like it's a rare thing, but there's definitely like a smaller and amount of guitar bands that are particularly coming through. Particularly maybe in the mainstream or bands that are doing well, that are not necessarily like the sound doesn't relate entirely to our stuff, but
sure.
we can always support it, you know. Definitely kind of see it as a win-win anytime a guitar band does anything particularly good, you know. What's good for them is good for the scene, and what's good for the scene is good for us. But in terms of like the music industry stuff, it's like we set up our own label, so the album came out on Clapter Records.
Okay.
And we're trying to grow that, trying to do some stuff like that. The kind of crease pop genre that we kind of tongue-in-cheek label ourselves. I'm starting to see a couple of more bands with the same, same kind of, not belief system. We're not starting a movement by any means, but there's definitely a level of awareness, I think, to guitar bands coming through the mould that is what it's all about, really, you know.
And what, for me personally, but I'm not from the UK, so it's difficult to judge. But it is something quintessentially British, I would say. That kind of, well, you have the Oasis, the Arctic Monkeys, and everything in between. So is there maybe? I thought this is a dumb question, but is there maybe a lack of bands like that in Britain?
It's funny with those kind of bands, particularly like Oasis and stuff, because the aftermath of Oasis is still very much in England. You know, it's
right.
in every pub, hall, pub music room. You just look at people's haircuts, you know, middle-aged people still love Liam Gallagher. He's on a massive platform. He played like the MTV Awards, you know, recently, for God's sake. And his new album is, you know, Come See, Come See. But
I liked it better than his previous solo work.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely England seems to be a breeding ground for that kind of stuff. Like if you date down to like the Kinks and stuff, we're massive fans of the Kinks. It's part of the reason why we now live in Muswell Hill in London. I'm trying to think where it comes from. I'm trying to think of other bands as well. I mean, in terms of in the guitar world, you've got like Idols are doing really well.
Right.
Fontaines.
But is that encouraging that you see those bands doing well now?
Yeah, I think there's definitely like a movement towards that stuff, because otherwise then the live kind of genre of music is controlled by like hip hop and stuff, just because they have less overheads, because it's just like mics and backing tracks and things. And if anything, so those artists are like pushing it to the forefront, because I've seen the Travis Scott documentary. It looks mental. Like the roller coaster thing he's got in his live shows.
It's a world influence.
And it's like, yeah, no, we want that just as much as
Yeah.
And hopefully.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say I'm not trying to disparage any other musical genre because there's loads of good music, but I would like to see a little bit more diversity in this.
Yeah, no, me too.
Well, hopefully this movement of sort of idols and bigger guitar bands is carving a sort of path which people will be able to follow and then maybe branch out of, and sort of more experimental things maybe come out from that. But I think the sort of idols world is pushing guitar music back up, maybe meaning that people will go to more guitar-based gigs rather than, you know, hip-hop gigs. Well, not rather than, but as well as, you know what I mean?
The only, and I'm getting to be an old man, but the only thing I would like to is that kids will still pick up a guitar and try and learn to play it. That's the only thing I like.
Well, to be fair, with the album stuff, and particularly as being a band, one thing I do notice, particularly in bands that are coming up through like the more mainstream angles, is you see a band live and they've got like backing tracks and synths and in-ears and it's click tracks and things. It's like, if you can't do all that stuff in a practice room as a wee 14-year-old boy, you know. If you can't sound like 1975 because they've got 20 different analog synths running through all their backing track stuff. You don't need that to write a song, you know.
Right.
If Lou Reed managed to do it on like a guitar that was out of tune, you could do this in your bedroom. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
But if in my mind, I think what I guess we're trying to get more out of all we're trying to push is the analog guitar scene, and there are some great bands out there doing that stuff as well. And you can, you know, use synths and backing tracks all you like, but have the awareness as well, and kind of, you know.
So can I assume this is going to be a prominent thing on the next record then, to try and keep it as analog as possible?
Yeah, super. I mean, Callum's if anything we're going to bring in that's like new, Callum's a really good pianist, right. So maybe a bit of that and some more backing vocals and things. Love the Eagles. So
we're not a band that's ever going to play to track and have, you know, backing track or anything like that. We want to keep it solely a show from musicians on a stage rather than.
Yeah, you know, it's not a fireworks display. You know, you can throw as much tech and things at people and they're like, wow. But I think there's a certain level of like raw energy behind something that has an actual, you know, input and release. Yeah. There's
what you hear on the album is what we can do on stage,
yeah,
and it is what we created the album from what we can do on stage, and hopefully we'll continue that ethos throughout.
Well, yeah, so in a sense it's very much a good representation of what you are as a live band.
Yeah, and it's like the element of risk as well. I think that's what, I guess once you get to a certain professional platform, you're trying to eradicate that or reduce that as much as possible, but I think with that element of risk is, if not sometimes the most exciting bit. You know, wireless guitars and things, it's like you want something in there, you want something to go wrong and to be fixed at the last moment, you know, you want that kind of, not that you should just start breaking your stuff, you know, purposefully.
Like the Hoover, yeah. Final question and kind of tying in with this, you don't strike me as people who kind of worry about what people would think, but is that in the back of your mind when you're writing or when you're...
You can't be excited about the good reviews and then sort of completely ignore the bad reviews.
Yeah.
It's counterproductive, but I'm not particularly fussed about reading them.
Well, for instance, you said you've kind of already have ideas, or the second album is already, I don't know how much you wrote, but when you're writing that, or when you're thinking about it, are you worried about? Are you at all considering what people might think of it, or is it very much insular? And
I think you definitely have to be aware of the environment that's going to be like put into and released into and listened to, and because if it's too much of like an echo chamber, then you know, we'll just be like, yo, that was so sick, so I was going to do amazing, and then, you know, no one cares for it because it's just all about us talking, you know, talking each other up. I'm excited for it. I don't know. Hopefully we can we've created a little bit of an audience that we can grow that, and they can be our echo chamber. We can just have our own little side of the show.
I think we'll sort of plan to do a tour and maybe try some of the newer tracks out, see how they're how they're responded to, see who likes it, you know. But I mean, I think ultimately it will be something which comes out naturally, and we're not going to respond to what people write about us really with or anything like that. It's completely what we want to solely do. You know.
And on that note, then, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks
Thank
a
you.
lot.